There we go. Welcome to the Authenticity Calling podcast. I'm your host, Ralitza Spassova, and today I'm here with Emily Wilcox, who is a master of clearing money blocks, money traumas, any kind of stories that hold us back from really embodying our true potential when it comes to earning and that energetic exchange of money. So welcome to the show, Emily.
Thank you, Ralitza. I'm so happy to be here.
Yeah, tell us a little bit about you, where you came from, your program, anything that feels juicy and alive for you.
Yeah, well, I'm a multi-seven-figure CEO. So I've built a kind of a serial entrepreneur, built product-based businesses, service-based businesses. And I'm a money healer and business mentor. So I've had many money issues, most of them internalized. I don't have like a rags to riches story where like there wasn't enough food on the table growing up or that kind of thing. And yet I still had a lot that I was projecting onto my relationship with money. And I saw it showing up in my businesses, how I felt about myself, what I could charge, what I was worthy of receiving, how I needed to deliver for clients once they paid me. Even the way that I imagined scaling to seven figures and beyond, like there was so much stuff that came up. And so as I led myself through that journey, that really turned into the curriculum and the healing modality that is now money wound medicine. So I've learned and now had the pleasure of taking hundreds of mostly women, but even not all entrepreneurs and some men, through this diagnostic that there are 6 distinct money wounds and they can block us in different ways. And we got to get to the root cause of them and heal them in order to really step into the wealth that we want. Because we all like to just think, I just need to make more money. If I just make more money, that's going to solve all of my money problems.
That's right.
But spoiler alert, it doesn't. We have to heal the underlying thing first.
Beautiful. Yeah, so well said. I mean, that's with everything. And I love that what's the title? What's the name of it?
Money Wound Medicine is my program.
Wound medicine. That is so juicy because I come from the medical world and I'm like, so much of what I learned in medicine is energetic and we just don't talk about it that way in healthcare. Yeah. I've now left the clinical medical world. I'm supporting the transformation in healthcare now. But a lot of what I see in my coaching clients is the exact same thing, whether it's about relationships, about money, about careers. It really doesn't matter where the focus is, but the real issue is the block that you're talking about, that inability to see the abundance that's possible. And really, it's all the stories that a lot of us were raised with, society puts on us, the belief systems of our family and friends, our culture that we belong to. So I'm so curious. Are you willing to share with us sort of the topics of the 6 wounds or what the top 6 wounds are?
Yeah. So there's the money shame wound, which is like, I'm not worthy of money. The evil money wound, being too rich is bad, or I'm going to have to go against my morals in order to get rich. The safe money wound, I'm not safe until I've got, stacks and stacks in the bank account. Money trust wound, I don't trust myself with money. I think I might screw it up. I can't make these big decisions. The hard money wound, if I want to make more, I've got to do so much more. Yeah. And the disappearing money wound, which is like, I don't trust money. It feels like it's always abandoning me.
Yes. Oh my goodness. You touched on, like, I feel, so I'm in this program right now. There's about 200 coaches in the program. It's called the Mastery Method by Alyssa Nobriga. And we're in the business section right now. And so I'm in the second year, I'm a re-enroll. And so a lot of what I hear now is basically where I was stuck last year when I was in the certification. And a lot of it was around those stories, around those projections. So when we say projections, for people that are kind of not accustomed to this lingo, it's really your belief, your inner belief system, you're putting it onto whatever you're trying to accomplish. So let's say you have a goal of earning X amount of money for the next 3 months. And your belief system is that you have to work hard. So you're going to go out of your way to work hard to prove to yourself that part in your ego that believes you have to work hard in order to get the money. And because that belief system's there, instead of focusing your energy on your goal and the easiest path to it, you focus your energy on this belief system, which actually keeps you looping in something that's actually not true, and it's not productive, and it's likely not going to get you there. So that's kind of how projections work when we talk about projections onto money, for example. So I'm so curious, which would you say is probably like the top one or two that you see most commonly?
I mean, the money shame wound is really common amongst women entrepreneurs. I don't think that this would show up as much for men, but it makes sense in the ways that we're raised and conditioned, where it's like this really like, oh, humble, who am I energy. Oh, I don't know. Is what I really do that special? Oh, I don't know. Would people really pay this? I mean, I don't know if I could really be super rich. I'm not really doing anything that amazing.
Right.
And it's like, again, you talked about projections. We're projecting our own beliefs about our worthiness or lack thereof onto money. And what
Our
happens is we
minimalistic
weaponize.
beliefs. Yeah. Sorry to
Yeah.
interrupt. Those little tiny, that they're not even true, because if you ask anybody else in your network, people that you work with, people that see you shine, they're like, what are you talking about? You're amazing at this. Sorry to interrupt. Go on. Yeah.
Yeah, no, exactly. And so we end up weaponizing money against our worthiness. And so when people don't pay us or the bank account's low, it's like, see, I don't know. I'm not really sure if my business is going to work. I'm not really that good at this. And it's like, money is so neutral. Money isn't like inherently good or bad. It doesn't choose people based on their worthiness or their morals or anything.
That's right.
And it's like, it makes us giggle because there's a part of us that really understands that.
Yeah.
Like our logical mind is like, oh, right. Yeah. Okay. But we still treat it that way.
Yes.
And because of that, we repel a lot of money. We block it. We make it this really sticky and tricky exchange. And just staying with the theme of the money shame wound for a minute, if you didn't repel the money, if some of it somehow sneaks in and someone pays you, then the way that it shows up is in over delivering. So it's like all of a sudden, oh my God, this person just sent me $20,000, and you feel beholden to them. You feel like it's super important for you to just go above and beyond to make sure they're super happy because they need to feel like they got an insane value. Otherwise, you don't feel okay with having received it. So there are lots of sneaky ways that these wounds impact our relationship with money, but also the way that we show up in our business if we're entrepreneurs.
Yeah, I love that. Yeah, no, I love that explanation that even if you somehow get get a chance in, it slides in. So the way that I see it is kind of like we create this algorithm for money to come to us, and the more stories we have, it's like the more hoops it has to jump. And like anything, any kind of energy, it wants the path of least resistance. So what would you say to somebody who comes to you with this money wound? Like, what would be, first, let's say, how would someone identify that they have this money wound?
Yeah. So if you go to moneywoundsquiz.com, you can take a diagnostic.
Amazing.
And you'll find out what your top money wounds are, which ones are strongest for you. And you'll understand this, being in the healthcare field, but I think many of us do. And I love analogies because they help us to take things that otherwise seem not very tangible and really understand them well. And so the value of having a diagnosis is being able to more easily understand the symptoms, the way that it shows up, and have a really clear path to healing.
Yes.
However, some people will take a diagnosis and wear it like a badge of victimhood.
Yes.
Like, well, I just can't do it because I have a money shame wound. It's like, no.
Yes.
So it's really important. There's this pivotal moment where you get to decide that the diagnostic is actually just a really important tool in healing.
Mm.
And I also want to be so clear and distinct that we are not our money wounds.
Mm-hmm.
We have them, but we are not them.
Yes.
And it's really helpful once you understand which ones you have and how they show up for you and how they feel in your body. Because now all of a sudden, when there's a trigger, you can go
Mm-hmm.
up. That's my hard money wound.
That's the wound.
It's
Yep.
just having a minute. And then
Yes.
you know, and then if you go through the healing work, you know what medicine to give it
That's it.
rather than just playing out the old tired way of, moving through life.
Absolutely. The old algorithm. I love that. Yeah. And that's very similar. It's like the ego essence conversation that we have, or the love fear dialogue. It's like talking to those parts. It's almost,
Yes.
it gives it permission, because to me, I feel like any of our blocks, someone just asked me earlier today about shadow work. They're like, how do you work with shadows and clients? And I said, well, shadow work is just the ego. The ego wants to be seen. And we're so accustomed to just pushing it over, running away, trying to prove it wrong, like all the ways that actually build it up and make it grow even bigger. So it's like these money wounds, they just want to be seen, and they have such a pure, beautiful intention for us. And if we
Yeah.
allow that intention to really sit at the table and share what is its intention, we can create a plan with our ego and our essence to move forward. It's like that yes and mentality has been everything for me. It's like there's
Yeah.
two opposing sides, but you don't have to fight yourself. You don't have to oppose yourself anymore. It's so
Right.
juicy. So I love that you're doing this. I think there are many, many people who are listening right now. I know definitely part of my community who would love to take this money quiz. So don't be surprised if there's a bunch of new people on your website
Right.
taking this money wounds quiz. That's amazing. And so how do you typically work with people who identify that they have a money block? Like, do you have different offers that you're open to sharing now?
Yeah, I mean, money wound medicine is the signature program. So
Beautiful.
if the real intention is to heal money wounds, that's the way to do it. And that program is instant access. So there's
Beautiful.
a bunch of really potent material that's available. And then I do live calls throughout the year just to embody and deepen.
Beautiful.
And then, I work with a lot of multi six-figure entrepreneurs who that feels normal to them, but they're really ready to scale to seven figures. And they want the strategy, but they also want the energetics. And, they've done some of the basic money healing work. We do some more of it together. But I think sometimes, in the more woo-woo and feminine spaces, there can be this feeling of like, oh, all I have to do is heal all of my shit, and then everything's going to magically come to me.
Right.
And it's like, well, we also have to take aligned action.
That's
That's the
it.
divine masculine.
Yeah.
And there are legitimately strategies to building a seven-figure business or
Yeah.
to tripling your revenue. And so I love holding spaces in like one-on-one or small group mastermind where we really get to do both. It's like we might be rolling up our sleeves and writing copy, but we're also doing it from a place of like intuition and what feels
Yes.
good.
Yes. Oh, I love it. You are
Yeah.
speaking my language. I talk about the divine masculine and the feminine all the time. And a lot of my program, the mastermind that I have for women, these are really successful women in business, but a lot of it is we've been so stuck in that masculine doing energy. And I don't think anybody ever taught a lot of us the power of the feminine. And so
Yeah.
there's this like toxic idea of what it is to be feminine, and this like bra burning feminism movement has like castrated all the men, unfortunately, and like we see the masculine as such a bad thing. And so yeah, it's so interesting that you say exactly that. And what I try to highlight for everyone is, it's not about being in the masculine all the time. It's not about letting go of the masculine, because there's some people
Right.
that function solely in the feminine, and they're like, well, why isn't this working? And it's like, well, let's take a look at the strategy. How can somebody work with you? And it's like, they don't have a clear,
Right.
methodology. They don't have a clear structure. They don't have, the scaffolding in place. And it's so important. Somebody said it to me yesterday, but the scaffolding is like that safety net that you get to fall back into in your feminine. It's like you just get to release it all. And it's so juicy and beautiful and exciting. And I love that you talk about balancing, you know, the feminine and the masculine energies. Yeah, that's amazing. So,
and I'll say too, like here's my spicy take.
Yeah.
Most women that think that they're being in their feminine, but don't have like masculine structures in place, or people on their team or in their life who are fulfilling that masculine energy, they're not in their feminine. They're in the wounded masculine. Ooh. But they're in the wounded masculine in the thinking. They're not taking action.
Okay.
But thinking is still masculine energy.
Okay.
It's still like a doing energy. It's just that it's an unrealized doing energy. Mm-hmm. And when I recognize this, because it's nuanced, it really changed a lot for me. And it was one of my former mentors, Melanie Ann Lair, and she talked about how like people used to ask her like, oh, well, when's the next round of Femme Fatale? And she was like, I don't know, like I'll feel into it. Yeah. And she thought she was being like so free, but she realized that like there's no freedom unless there's freedom of the mind. And if you're constantly thinking like, oh, when am I going to run the next thing? Oh, maybe I'll do it next month. No, I have my anniversary on that day and I need to block out 14 days. You're just thinking. Yes. That ain't feminine.
Yes.
So just to be clear, if you're in thinking mode all the time and you're trying to call that like flowy feminine energy, you're not. And that's to your point, you need that divine masculine structure so that you can actually relax into it and experience what it does feel like to be in the surrendered freedom of the feminine.
That's it. I love that. I absolutely love that you said that, because that's been, I think, me my whole life before coaching. It was constant thinking, overthinking. And I mean, I got a formal diagnosis of ADD as an adult, but as I've done my healing work, a lot of that spinning has stopped. And so I'm like, is this the solution? Like, is this something that we don't know about in healthcare? This is the magic, like spirit pill that everybody needs. And I feel like it's a lot of that is exactly what you said, is spinning in that toxic masculinity, but again, not taking action. Right. And aligned action is everything. And to me, as I've healed that masculine part of me that I was functioning out of, that wounded masculine, like you said, as soon as that safety was there, my feminine came out, and it was like, oh, I get to just be and then take aligned action when it comes to me. Like, what? I get to
like, holy shit, I've been making it so much harder than it needed to be.
That's it. That is absolutely it. So it's so funny because I hired a team and things were going like not well at all. I'm like, what's like, something's got to give, right? My mentor coach said, don't hire a team until you're this. And I'm like, nope, I need a team. I'm in my corporate. I need, right? And it's like, I recognize I was coming out of this sense of needing the structure rather than trusting what's there. And then again, externalizing and asking others, what should I do? What should I do? When really I knew what I needed to do. I should have done this a year ago. Right. Yeah. And I knew it was going to serve my purpose. And the way that I see it now is it's so much bigger than me. My coaching has a life of its own, and I'm just showing up to do it. And so when I fall back into that feminine and see it from that perspective, it's like, wait a second, I get to be inspired from this life force that's coming through me. Yes. I get to take action knowing wholeheartedly with full faith that it's going to work, because it came from that place. It came from the divine. It didn't come from me. I'm so limited in my human body, but without that connection to the spirit, it's like we stay stuck in that human limitation of what does the ego know? And it's so funny to balance between this, like, this medical scientific world that I come from. And it's very similar the way that I see, diseases and diagnoses. We're projecting them onto the person, and then they have an excuse, right? Not to do all the things that actually bring them back to wellness and health and whole. And so, it's really, really interesting. Just all the synchronicities are just like everything in my world right now. And that was why I created the Authenticity Calling podcast, to call people forward, to invite those synchronicities, to look at the patterns, to really trust what's coming and here for them. So I'm really curious if you're willing to share kind of between where you were and where you are now. What do you think supported you in taking that aligned action, or starting to do the following the path of that divine calling, instead of going to your mind or going to only strategy or only falling back? Like, what was the thing that supported you the most, would you say?
Yeah. I mean, I do think a lot of it's messy action and willing to experiment.
Yes. I love that you said that.
Like, you're going to feel like you've got no idea what you're doing and you're winging it, and that it doesn't really go away. That's the crazy thing. But like, you can get more comfortable with it. And I think the more you look at it through the soul's perspective and be like, oh, well, my higher self actually signed up for this, not so that I would know all the answers and feel like an expert all the time, but like to actually be on this roller coaster ride. And, it's like when we think about an actual roller coaster, we're essentially signing up for a little bit of torment, like
a little bit of the unknown. Yeah.
Exhilaration, but also like, oh my God, what am I doing?
Yeah.
And entrepreneurship is that same way. And I think like again and again, when we can remind ourselves that like, no one's doing this to me. Like, I signed up for this. And that means that there's a part of me that's actually enjoying the thrill of it.
Mm-hmm.
And often what happens is that it's only our subconscious that's getting the kinky pleasure out of uncomfortable and even sometimes on surface, like very detrimental and damaging things.
Yeah.
But our subconscious mind controls us. And so when we can bring some of the subconscious forward and bring it into consciousness, it really helps. And so recognizing the parts of ourselves that like are actually getting like a kinky pleasure out of suffering, or out of it being really hard, out of feeling like you're so close, but you're never the chosen one, out of never having enough in your bank account. Like, I promise, and it sounds crazy, but there is a part of us that actually gets enjoyment and pleasure out of that. And it's what you're talking about with shadow work. Like when we're just so afraid of our shadow or so afraid of our subconscious that we avoid it. It's like, well, you can do that, but then just recognize that you're not in relationship with the part of you that's actually calling the shots and getting what it wants.
That's it. That's it.
So it's like when you're brave enough to actually look at it and then start to integrate it, it's like, I've found that, I could tell you so many stories of moments where it seemed like the sky was falling on this path to 7 figures. And by the way, I've been at 7 figures now for multiple years and it hasn't gone away. Like there are still so many moments where it's like questioning life, whether you're meant to be doing this, whether it's all going to fall apart. Like that doesn't actually go away, but it's like what I've gotten used to is being like, I chose this. Isn't this so exhilarating? Isn't it actually fun? And you know what? Somehow everything's always worked out.
Yes.
In the past, it's all working out now.
Yes.
Probably chances are it's all going to be fine in the future.
Yes.
So can I like get a little bit curious about the plot twist instead of stressing about how I need to fix whatever is happening in this moment?
Yes. Or prepare for the plot twist. That's another thing. Many people are trying to prepare for it's like, you can't. The more you try, the more out of control it's going to be. And the more you're going to lose grip.
You're just going to manifest more bad shit, but there's still going to be stuff that takes you by surprise.
Exactly. You're committing to your suffering. I love that you said that, because I say it all the time. Why are you committing to your suffering? How are you committing to your suffering? Let's bring that to light and let's work with it. So I love that. And I also compare it to, giving my 16-year-old self the keys to the Lambo. Like, I was a great driver at 16, but no way would I trust myself with a Lamborghini. Even now I'm like, well, shouldn't I? I don't know. But that's how I compare the ego. And a lot of us are functioning out of our ego. Yeah. So how would you say someone can catch themselves? Like, what is your key aha moment where you're like, oh yeah, I'm just in my ego right now?
Well, I really believe that if you haven't done some level of inner child healing
Totally.
or some level of shadow work or ego work, like something, it's going to be really, really difficult because, like you talk about with algorithms, essentially, like there's this software that just runs. There's a computer program that just runs. And what it's running based off of is conditioning from the past, mostly from childhood. And when I started doing the inner child work, I mean, it was like shocking to realize how few sovereign decisions I was actually making. Like
Can
I
you
thought
describe
I
that
was
a little
walking
bit?
around as like a high functioning sovereign being, but
Yes.
no.
Yes. Yeah. Can you just can you pick that apart a little bit? When you say sovereign being, what do you mean by that? Just so it's very clear to
Yeah.
listeners.
I mean, sovereign meaning that I actually am in control, that I'm actually exercising free will.
Yes.
And when we operate out of free will, essentially that means that like no matter what happens to us, like every decision is available, right? And so I'll just give you an example of the way that like old patterns were playing out in my life, just to make it super tangible. So we live in Southern California. Most people in the world have probably heard something about LA home prices or, you know, the cost of living in Southern California. So one of my husband's pastimes used to be going on Zillow and looking at like fancy compounds. And so he would send me links to like $5 million, $3 million homes and be like, oh, this one's so cool. Oh, check this one out. It has a tennis court. Like, we're going to have a view like this someday. And for him, it was like this really fun, like vision board kind of a thing.
Yeah.
What it triggered in me was intense fear.
Mm.
It triggered a wound that I had of I'm on my own, that I'm the only one responsible. I was like, wow, he is so out of touch. How does he think that we would ever be able to afford a home like this? Oh my God, the guy knows nothing about money. Crap. That means that I have to be extra responsible. I need to keep money that he doesn't have access to, because if shit hits the fan or he makes any bad decisions, I need to be the one that will keep a roof over our head.
Masculine, 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 masculine. It's like
all masculine.
Totally.
And also
Yeah.
that's a computer program that is running in the background. And so all my husband has to do is send me a link to a property that he thinks looks cool. And what happens is that that program runs. Now, all of that was shit from my childhood.
And you're ready to leave your husband.
That's right.
I made a bad decision.
Right. And like either I'm, you know, acting out on him or it's like building up this inner resentment. And of course, he's looking for connection and looking for me to be like, oh, that's amazing. Like, I can't wait for us to have that someday. And instead, I'm just like in this freeze trauma response and feeling horrible about the whole thing. But it's like the way that I grew up, my dad didn't trust my mom. He thought that she was horrible with money. He felt like she would put our family at risk, that she would spend on things that she shouldn't have. And I don't know how much of that was actually true. Like from the data points that I have, it seems pretty overblown, but I was just acting out my dad's conditioning. That wasn't me as a sovereign being tapping into free will and saying, wow, my husband just sent me a link to real estate and I have every response available to me.
Yes.
And so in order for us to even start to catch ourselves, which was your original question, there has to be some space between something happening and the default program running. And it takes some level of like third-party observation of what's happening in your mind and body. There has to be that awareness. But if the trigger is strong, I just find that usually we need to have done some inner child healing or done some shadow work separate so that we can start to catch it and
Mhm.
start to notice. And as soon as we notice, then we have a choice point.
Yes.
It's like, am I going to do the same thing that I've always done? Or the choice point for me became, oh, wow, I feel so unsafe right now.
Yeah.
And I noticed like the part of me that feels like she's on her own.
Mhm.
Like, how can I reparent her? How can I
Mm.
create some safety in my body right now?
Yes.
And like take some breaths and even just think about my husband. Like, has he ever actually put us in financial jeopardy?
Yes.
No, actually, in all the years that we've been together, things have only gotten better and better, and our net worth has increased. And like, start to just guide yourself through that trigger so that you can get back to a neutral place and then take the action that you really want to take.
Love that. I love that. Thank you for walking us through that. That is so powerful because that's exactly how it functions. It's like you don't know what you don't know. You
Right.
can't have a level of awareness. And that's why coaching really, really works. It's like you have this person that sees you in your essence. Most coaches, most really good coaches, we're able to see our clients in their full potential, in that everything is possible. And what is their best? What is their gift? What is their like natural juiciness in life? How do they get to show up and it just gets to be easeful? And so having that person's perspective to reflect back what they're seeing is everything. And a friend
Yes.
can reflect, but it depends how healed that friend is as well, right? So a lot of people
Right.
say, oh, I'll just talk to my friend. It's like, well, are they just going to propagate your fears? Are they just going to give you more layers to work with?
Right.
Or, are you going to take on their fears now? So yeah, working with a trained professional is so, so, so important, I believe, to getting through the awareness first of all, but then into aligned action. And as you say, we do shadow work, we do childhood, we do unconscious reprogramming, all those things. And again, there's so many coaches out there right now that I personally feel that you have to feel it out. You have to trust where your soul calls you and just dive in. To me, that's my money block around choosing a coaching program and actually spending. Because I mean, I have a line of credit for medical school still that I'm paying back. And so my money story was, I can't afford this. Just like most people will say, I can't afford this. But looking back now, and everybody that has done the work will tell you, it is priceless. I would have taken out another loan just as big just to get to
Right.
where I am now, because it is this level of functioning, this way of being, this truly living. I don't think I was living before. I was
Right.
surviving, like if you can even call it that. It was bad.
Yeah.
So when I compare it to that now, it's like you get to be in flow, and it's like every moment is so juicy because every DM that comes in, it's like, I know this is Spirit Tribe. I know this is someone I'm going to connect with, and it's going to be so good. And
Yeah.
just every moment, even in my corporate career, I just got a promotion and people ask me like, how did you do that? You jumped like multiple levels in less than a year. And to me, it was exactly that. It was doing the deeper work that got me there. It was unblocking all of those channels that were available, that abundance that was available, and really following my calling. I've always known the calling was transforming healthcare. It's
Yeah.
like people used to ask me, why'd you study medicine if you're so holistic minded and if you don't believe that this is working? And it's like, well, I'm in it to change it. I always used to say that. And so I think trusting our inner voice, trusting that part of us that comes through once in a while, and
Yes.
sometimes it's very, like, not very often, but trusting that it knows and following that. It's like following those
Yeah.
little breadcrumbs towards what's possible is,
Yes.
to me, the way to start. But I love what you said, is it's true. You need to do some level of the work to
Yeah.
actually be able to regularly catch yourself.
Yes.
And the other thing I really, really appreciate, and I love that there is no destination. It's like, no matter where you're at in your earning, in your business, in your relationship, in your career, in your home, in your wherever you're at, this stuff doesn't just go away. It's part of our human experiment. It's part of the
Right.
human experience, right?
Yes.
And so playing with it, right? Like getting playful with it, taking messy action, that is so juicy. Because the perfectionist, I used to be the shadow, like the closet perfectionist. I'm a
Yeah.
3 wing 2 on the Enneagram, so the achiever and the helper. But the achiever
Yes.
was very focused on achieving, and the
Yes.
helper was definitely focused on not helping myself, helping others. And
Right.
so, and that closet perfectionist would come up, and so it's like, it's the three worst things to be as an entrepreneur, because you just get in your way all the time.
Yeah.
And recognizing that perfection is actually self-rejection, I think to me was my path to that awareness, that breaking moment where I was like, oh, okay, I see. So me trying to perfect it is actually me not showing up for what I'm here for. And I'm
Right.
not only rejecting myself, I'm rejecting all these people I'm supposed to help because I
Yeah.
can't help them from this place of insecurity and not enoughness.
Right.
So I'm like, that's what really drove me. And again, you can use your insecurities, your ego, your patterns to serve you, or you can use them to get in your own way. So
Yeah. Yeah. And then it's like, it shows up in sneaky ways too. Like my coaching business really was very soul driven. It wasn't like, oh, I need to make money or I want to plug in this extra income source or whatever.
yeah.
It was all very intuitively guided. And so for a while I was like, great. Okay. I'm only taking action in my coaching business if it's intuitively guided. And what I realized is there was this sneaky thing where I really thought like, okay, if it's coming from my higher self, if it's coming from intuition, then I will get the outcome that I want.
Mm.
And it's like, that's actually not true at all. That's
Mm.
just spiritualized perfectionism happening again. Because what is
Mm.
intuition? Intuition is our higher self speaking to us. What does our higher self want? Growth and evolution. We grow
Mm.
and evolve by failing, by screwing up, by having
That's
lots of things that don't work, by navigating disappointment. And so I used to think like, oh, well, if I'm intuitively feeling drawn to, hosting a retreat and this month in this location, well, then for sure the retreat will sell out because I'm being guided to it. And it's like, maybe you're being guided to it just so you can have the experience of it not selling out and you having to cancel it and feeling all kinds of shame about that. And then you just get to heal that part of yourself.
That's it. That's it. It's so funny you say that. One of a close friend of mine, we were saying our prayers, our thanks, our gratitude, and he said, thank you for this beautiful day, for the flow and just all the synchronicities today. It wasn't as challenging today though. And I was like, what? You're asking for more challenges? It's like that is the masculine. Like they want to, like fight a bull. And that is growth. And that's so funny because I feel like that's the feminine just wants the flow, but then the masculine needs that needs to work
Right.
through something. It needs to grow. It needs to have that edge that's like, okay, what am I learning today? What am I overcoming today? Like, what am I? And so
Yeah.
embracing that was, to me, that was an invitation to embrace the challenges and really see them as like, yeah, let's take the bull by the horns. Like, I wonder how much better it can get after that. Like, that was so juicy and so exciting to see it from that perspective, because that's where I've been, really in that feminine and trying to create that flow, because I've been for so long in the toxic masculine.
Right.
But embracing that part that's like, yeah, it gets to be exciting even when it doesn't work. What you just said is so good. So good. I love it. Well, thank you so much, Emily, for your time today. If there's one thing that you can leave our audience with, one tip, one, juicy, authentic, like calling to themselves, what would that be?
What I'm feeling for us as like high achieving women who have climbed the corporate ladder, who've gotten all the degrees, who've been the teacher's pet and all that kind of stuff, is really reconnecting with your body, because that is where our intuition lives. And when we can cultivate that new relationship and have that internal guidance system, everything changes. So much opens up to us, and it really breaks all kinds of ancestral curses around, women needing a man to tell us what to do, or being untrustworthy, or being emotional, or being whatever. It's like our emotions are a freaking gift.
Yes.
Our feeling is a gift. Our connection to our body is a gift. And it's okay if that doesn't feel super accessible. It didn't to me. Like I was really good at not paying attention to my body. Like I did
Emotional
CrossFit
ninja.
for all these years. Like I would just punish my body.
Yeah.
I had like 2 natural childbirths, which was like wonderful. But also I think part of the reason I could do it was because I was like had a high pain threshold, AKA wasn't listening to my body, you know? So it's a process to get reconnected, but it opens up everything. And to me, that connection to the essence of womanhood and feminine energy is it opens up all possibilities.
I love that. Thank you. That was juicy.
Yes, you're welcome.
Excellent. That is amazing. Thank you so much. Thanks for your time today. Let us know how people can find you.
Yeah, I'm on most social media platforms at mmakesmoney. EmilyWilcox.com is my gorgeous redesigned website and has lots of information about how we can work together and free resources. And then moneywoundsquiz.com is where you can go to diagnose your money wounds.
Perfect. Thank you. And that's shared in the Facebook, and it'll definitely be shared in the show notes. And thank you so much for your time today. That was absolutely gorgeous. You are such a divine soul. I'm so happy to be in Spirit Tribe with you. And yeah, anything moving forward, I would be so happy to collaborate, work together, whatever comes through. I'm all about
Amazing.
it.
Thank you
Thank
so
you so
much.
much. Have a beautiful day.
You too.
Take care, love.